I recently had the opportunity to visit Oakwood on a vintage tube train excursion. As I didn't have much footage of Oakwood, I figured I'd kill two birds with one stone. So, here is the story of Oakwood. Oakwood is on the Piccadilly line of the London Underground. It's the penultimate station before Cockfosters, or the first station after Cockfosters, depending which direction you're going in. But it hasn't always been called Oakwood. When the line opened in March 1933, this station was called Enfield West. At that time it was the terminus, the line only extending out to Cockfosters in July that year. London Transport very quickly changed their minds on the name, and in May 1934 it was renamed Enfield West Oakwood. On the 1st of September 1946 it was cut back to just Oakwood. Before opening it was to be named East Barnet. The name Merryhills was also considered, as was going with Oakwood from the very start. This reflects the fact that when it was built, this was a line that served nowhere. It had long been the policy of the Underground Group to build stations first in the hope that the suburbs followed. Which, to be fair, they usually did. But it meant that often there was nowhere obvious for the station to be named after. It's worth quoting the text on the original plan here because it sounds more like estate agent's blurb than an engineering text. Situated at the junction of Chase Road with East Barnet Road in open country, the same as Morden when the City Railway was projected. It lies in one of the most delightful countrified spots around London and, being 275 feet above sea level, is sufficiently high to be clear of most of the fogs. A good-class residential neighbourhood will undoubtedly spring up as a result of the extension of the Piccadilly Railway. Originally, it was intended to be the actual terminus. A depot was to be constructed to the north. However, the bods from operations complained that as built, the depot could only be accessed from one end. It would be easier, they argued, if trains could enter from both ends. So the line was made longer still, and at this point they decided they might as well just build Cockfosters Station and be done with it. Oakwood Station was designed by Charles Holden and Charles James. It was in Holden's typical modernist style, the so-called brick box with a lid. Lots of space for passengers to circulate. Brick walls to give a homey feel. Concrete roof and platform canopies for ease and cheapness, with plenty of glass to let the light in. The inside is lined with hard-wearing, shiny black bricks, the better to reflect that light. There's an exterior frieze of green tiling which crops up elsewhere on the Piccadilly extension. Originally, the booking hall had no doors, but these were added after construction when it was found that the airy ticket hall could be a little too airy in the British weather. Oakwood is a great one for heritage features. It's one of the rare stations that still includes a pasimeter. Now, I've talked about these, but I don't think I've ever explained what they actually are, which seems quite remiss. Before automatic ticket barriers, pasimeters were staffed booths from which tickets could be checked before letting passengers in or out. Mostly they've been removed and replaced on the network. It feels weird to me to call this a heritage feature, but you can see that there used to be payphones here, made obsolete by the rise of mobiles. My favourite feature is this little sign by the exit, which is so out of date and has so many curiosities about it that I might actually give it its own video. I also love these round Art Deco light fittings. You don't see those very often. The concrete canopies at platform level were designed by Stanley Heaps. Originally, the space above the benches housed the coats of arms of Southgate Borough Council. Outside, there are these wonderful circular bus shelters which also incorporate lighting. A vital part of these outer suburban tube stations was connectivity with other forms of transport. One advantage of there being nothing here when the station opened was that Holden and his fellow architects could really go to town with space. Well, not go to town, but you know what I mean. Actually, the station was going to be even larger. There would have been another entrance on the other side of the road, and the entrance would have included two-storey buildings either side of the booking hall with shops and a cinema, essentially giving the new suburb they anticipated a head start. An even earlier version would have included towers at either end. Perhaps it's fortunate that all this didn't go ahead. One of the great criticisms in the decades following the opening of Oakwood was that it was too large for the traffic it actually received. Suburban development was slow, far slower than anticipated. In fact, some idea of how undeveloped the area was can be seen in the fact that Oakwood, or Enfield West as it was still known, was a destination for trains of evacuee children during the Second World War. Evidently, it was not considered to be part of the city. Over-engineered it may be, but it's undoubtedly a classic. In 1971 it was Grade 2-star listed, and it has undergone a great deal of restoration work since the 1990s. Not to say that it's remained completely static. In 2006 to 2007 it was upgraded to provide step-free access. Oakwood may have opened as a station in the middle of nowhere with more names than Sean Combs, but I think it's developed a solid identity of its own. Well, I hope you enjoyed this many-named tale from the tube. If so, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. Once again, I would like to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the coat of arms to my concrete wall. And I will see you all again very soon for another Tale from the Tube.